Hey, it's Mazzy, and I'm going to talk about greatest hits and comps and a lot of boomer stuff here. So, some argue that the best music was that boomer stuff, the stuff of the 1960s and 1970s. Like, I like all the decades, different things in all the decades. And when people say, oh, you boomer stuff, we had great music in the 80s. I was listening to music in the 80s. I was in my 20s, into the 30s also. So I'm there with you. But this morning I got up, I made my cappuccino. I wanted to wake up. I didn't want to put on some just have a little light tea and listen to jazz. I wanted, strong espresso and rock. And I put on this comp. I don't know why I pulled this, but I felt I wanted something to wake me up. This is my original 1975 promo copy of this record. And I put it on. And now sometimes comps always don't sound as good as the original versions. Are cut up, the remastering, the mastering, all that kind of shit that goes on with these things. It's basically, let's make a buck and resell the music you bought before. Sometimes we'll stick an extra track on. But I want to talk about comps today. I also want to argue with those of you who say, they're only a singles band. You only need the best of. Now, I'm not talking about the Stones, but there's a couple other bands here that I've heard people say that. And you are absolutely wrong. You're an amateur if all you have is the greatest hits of a band. You need to deep dive into these things. But I noticed when I listened to this at 7 o'clock this morning, blasted, all of a sudden, track 2 came out. First was Brown Sugar, and that's intense enough. But Tumble Dice came on, and I've always loved that song. 1972, it was the single off of XO on Main Street. What a interesting single that was, thinking back on it, because it wasn't fast, it wasn't slow. It had this great, swampy, draggy groove that just captivated. I played that. I went back, lifted my tone arm, went back, listened to that song 3 times in a row, and I blasted it. And I frankly was surprised how good this sounded, because comps have a reputation of not always sounding as good as the original. I did look this up. I know I talk about the music stupid all the time and not really about the pressings, but I do that occasionally. Those of you who have followed me know I do a few comparisons. But this is a George Perot cut. This is a Presswell pressing. Go to the University of Vinyl if you want to hear the details on this shit. I don't talk about this shit often, but I was so surprised at this promo copy. Now, I don't know if all the copies early on, it's not a white label, it's just your standard custom label, Atlantic, Rolling Stones records, even a custom label for this comp. What is this illustration? Anyway, this is a great comp. This is that whole, third period of Stones, maybe you call this period 3. Early stuff, the bluesy stuff, and then Satisfaction, period 1. The Let It Bleed, the Beggar's Banquet, kind of that from Flowers on, period 2, and then, of course, when they have their own custom label. This is amazing. Every track. And I was surprised, too, opening up on side 2. I've never been a fan. I think Angie is one of their overbaked, give me a break. It's Angie, 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 Angie. But it sounded so good and crisp. I got to pull out my Goat's Head Soup, my original, and see if it's really as good. But it sounded amazing on here. So I'm just showcasing some comps. I have 10 comps plus a bonus, because that's what you do when you make videos. You can't stop. And these aren't the definitive best of in my collection, but they're things I just kind of thought about. Again, you judge, but these are kind of nice teasers to get into all the albums. Now, this comp I actually promoted and sold when it came out, and was it 77, 78? This is the double album, Steely Dan's Greatest Hits. Now, this is an amazing sounding record too. This is a Robert Ludwig cut. My promo, I had boxes of these. When I got laid off, when MCA bought ABC, I had 2 boxes of promos that I think I traded in to a used shop because I was unemployed until MCA hired me back a month later. So I should have kept them all. These go for some, not totally expensive, but get this first ABC. Don't get the MCA one with the gold stamp, or Actually, those are probably still ABC. We want the ABC label, not the MCA. And of course, it had one extra track. The extra track was Here at the Western World. That's to get you to sell. This is a double album. This sounds amazing. All that great Steely Dan stuff. Now, some may say that's all you need. You don't need Countdown to Ecstasy. You don't need Pretzelology. You don't need All Asia. Of course you do. But this is a fantastic listen. Sometimes you do want just to listen to the hits, the things that kind of bring you in. Again, now with streaming, which I rarely do except for the Apple streaming in the car, it's a way to kind of give you your taste buds, give you a little sampler. So ABC Records, Steely Dan. Now this is one that, this only came out in the UK. We had a different versions of it. In America, we had one of the first greatest hits, or the second greatest hits, was the Byrds' greatest hits in America. I think Dylan, out of the pop artists, was one of the first greatest hits albums that sold a lot with that great Milton Glaser poster. But this comp only came out in the UK, 1974. This came out 1973, excuse me, as the Byrds had split up. And this is a fantastic overview. I'm still one that says you need all 11 of the Byrds records, but this covers everything, the singles. And what's nice about in the UK, there was always more tracks per side. American, because of the publishing costs, would put maybe 6 tracks aside. Here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in most cases here. And you have their entire career. You have, obviously, the Mr. Tambourine Man, Turn, 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 8 Miles High, Mr. Spaceman, Fifth Dimension, You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. Then you go into that cross-country thing with You Ain't Going Nowhere, Hickory Wind, Nashville West. You go into the later period with the Ballad of Easy Rider, Jesus Is Just All Right, Chestnut Mare, that amazing recording with that great Clarence White guitar playing. Jamaica Say You Will, that cover of the Jackson Browne song, and Tiffany Queen. And just, you have the later stuff that a lot of people don't know about in the last few Bird Maniacs albums and the last few Byrds records, which I still think are good records. Again, History of the Byrds. Also, this was great. I don't remember if this was the first that I ever saw, but the illustrator, designer, researcher, Pete Frame, I have a book downstairs, a couple books of his work. I know I should hold it this way, but the format of video is landscape. These great family trees of bands. And it goes from Skip and Flip, pre-Byrds trio, the Hillman, and through all the incarnations of the Byrds, the side projects and everything. And I used to like really sit and study these things like puzzles, and the books that have all the different bands. And there's been a bunch of albums with these things in them. But the Pete Frame book that contains all of them, for the most part, are pretty cool. But History of the Byrds, only a UK comp in this form. In America, this cover was on the Byrds Greatest Hits Volume 2. But this is the later period of the Byrds with Roger, Skip, Gene, and Clarence. The Byrds. Good comp. And that's only a UK comp, was on Columbia, Sony Columbia, the orange label. Now, this is the second Grateful Dead comp that Warner Brothers put out. They did a single LP right as soon as they left and started their own label. They wanted to make their money back, and they put out what is Skeletons from the Closet, which I no longer have, a single disc. But with the Grateful Dead, you need to spread out. So this came out in 1977. This happens to be a German pressing of it. It sounds really good. The American sounds good. You know, that there is that whole thing, country of origin. It's not always an absolute, but this is a great thing. Of course, it has their so-called popular songs like New Minglewood Blues, but then it goes into Cosmic Charlie, so you get some psychedelic stuff. You have Ripple and Dark Star, a segment of Dark Star. You have Jack Straw, Me and My Uncle, Tennessee Jed, Playing in the Band, Brown Eyed Girl, Ramble on Rose. So unfortunately on this, you don't have those great songs from American Beauty and Working Man's Dead, like Truckin' and stuff, the hits. So this is the best of the Grateful Dead. What a long, strange trip, but this is a great listen. And sometimes a comp that edits long songs can work in the moment when you just want to like have an aperitif and experience a band. So I think this is a delicious sampling of the Grateful Dead from 1977 Warner Brothers. Again, still trying to make their money back from all that money they lost originally with the Grateful Dead. Of course, now they're back with Warner's and Rhino and everything. Interesting, huh? Now this is one of the later comps, still in the 80s. This was initially a UK comp only. The World Won't Listen, the Smiths. Now, in America, we had Louder Than Bombs. That was only an American comp initially, a double album, which is one of my favorite comps. This is the closest, well, this is somewhat of a greatest hits, but this is A-side and B-sides. This is on Rough Trade, only in the UK initially. I think since the reissues have come out, it's probably out here. I love this existing cover photograph by Jürgen Vollmer, the German photographer who took pictures. These were like Beatle fans back in the days. And he obviously, the rock and roll album with John Lennon standing in the doorway was one of his photographs from the book Rock and Roll. But these are cool shots by Jürgen that Morrissey picked for this collection. This is really good. Now, of course, some of the songs on there have different mixes than Louder Than Bombs. Again, A-sides, B-sides. I think one of the or two of these songs actually weren't released as singles. They were going to, and they were pulled back. I think You Just Haven't Earned It Yet, Baby was one of them. But what a great comp. I was listening to Ask, The Bomb, The Bomb, The Bomb. How appropriate that is right now, unfortunately. But I love this, The Boy with the Thorn in His Side. Just a great, some people who don't understand or follow Smiths, oh, they're just a singles band. They were a friggin' great singles band in the UK. In America, they never, they had a big cult following. They didn't have the mass appreciation they did in the UK. 4 albums only, and a lot of comps. Hatful Hollow, this, Louder Than Bombs. Boomer music, definitely. To me, one of the greatest pop singers, country crossover to pop, female vocalist in the 1970s. The biggest selling was Linda Ronstadt. And of course, the 2 greatest hits records. What's amazing about these, now I got these from the Coleman collection. I had original copies of the first one. I never had a volume 2. But these are great comps on Asylum Records. And what these are the DCC editions from audiophile, original tapes cut by Steve Hoffman. Check these out. These sound so good. They sound better than the originals. I did at one point check this out compared to the original. If you can find these, and if you like Linda Ronstadt, you like her hits. Now, I'm one that, I love Linda Ronstadt. I like Heart Like a Wheel. I like Don't Cry Now. I like that series of Asylum records where she covered all these artists. I love in particular, she covers Warren Zevon several times and the unknown songs. But, she does Tumble and Dice too. And she does, Back in the USA, Chuck Berry. That stuff I'm not so in love with. But these are excellent sounding. Of course, they're in the great studios of LA, produced by Peter Asher, great studio musicians. Wonderful, wonderful comp. So if you can find the DCC cuts of these, that numbered limited edition there, you can see that right there. 2 volumes, so good. Now this does have some songs from the Capitol stuff, which I love because Long, 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 to me, was a perfect song. Of course, You're No Good, Silver Threads and Golden Needles, Desperado. So they have things, well, actually Desperado was on her first Asylum record. Then they did the Capitol, then back to Asylum. And of course, Different Drum, that great song that Mike Nesmith wrote. Huge hit for the Stone Ponies, but what a great record here. So these are excellent greatest hits records. And if you can find the DCC ones, this is interesting. And I remember I ordered this from Acoustic Sounds. Chad Kassem worked on this painlessly, a lot of pain actually, for a long time. And this is Steppenwolf's Gold, their greatest hits. Steppenwolf Gold, their greatest hits. I am one that think their first 2 records are perfect records. Steppenwolf and the second one, Steppenwolf the Second. I love those two records. After that, it's hit and miss for me. Yes, Monster, very politically charged, intense, epic of a song on there. And so sometimes they're past the initial singles. I'm not quite in love with it. I remember when this came out, as this was coming out, there were interviews or discussions or something with Chad Kassem, how hard it was. Because when you do a comp, especially trying to do an audiophile comp, you have to pull all these sources together, then you have to master them to make sure the level. So I give him big props for doing this. And it's a really good sounding record. Of course, all the master hits. This came out in 2017. It's cut by Kevin Gray at Coherent. So the DNA is there. The songs are there. The music is there. The gatefold is there. A lot of fringe, a lot of fringe and a lot of hair there. But of course, Born to Be Wild, Magic Carpet Ride, Hey Lawdy Mama, The Pusher. Oh God, that riff on The Pusher, that swampy thing. Sookie Sookie, I love that song. Move Over, Rock Me. Great comp, interesting comp. Again, I picked the first two records over this, but for a greatest hits record, and you want something, again, I know I always talk about the music first, but I like good sound if you want the music. So you can probably find very, very cheap copies of the original ABC best of, but if you can stumble across this, not sure if it's in print anymore, but Acoustic Sounds, Analog Productions. Now here's one that was only in the UK, and I bought it originally when it came out. This is not my original pressing. Unfortunately, that purge, thinking the CD would be better in '95. This is a later reissue. This is a music on vinyl. I probably should just find an original UK because they're not that expensive. This is Fleetwood Mac's Greatest Hits. Now, what's great about this is the great Fleetwood Mac from my point of view. Yes, I know about Rumors and Tusk and the self-titled in '75 and Stevie Nicks and Witchy, all that stuff. But to me, this is the stuff. There's been a lot of different comps of Fleetwood Mac. Obviously, they started in the bluesy thing. One of their greatest hits, a great instrumental, opens this up, is Albatross. Just love that song on there. Sort of Hawaiian instrumental, almost like a pedal steel, but a slide thing. Really a beautiful song. Man of the World, the Green Monalishi, Black Magic Woman, the original. This is the original, except no substitutes. Santana was the cover. Of course, that's a great version. That made it famous. Oh Well, parts 1 and 2, the long song, A-side and B-side of a single, wasn't on the original Then Play On that was added. It's one of the great epic pieces of this period of Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green. I just love it. Shake Your Money Maker, Need Your Love So Bad, one of the great blues recordings of Fleetwood Mac in this period. And Rattlesnake, Shake. Anyway, this is a great blues record, but it's more than just a normal, British white guys doing blues. This is a wonderful comp. Pick up the UK. It was on CBS as a UK. This is the music on vinyl. Sounds excellent. Again, I no longer have my original, but you got the whole band here from that day. Of course, with the best rhythm section ever of John McVie and Mick Fleetwood. Jeremy Spencer too, right? All right, now this is an audiophile's dream, and this was eventually put out, and Neil Young, who is one of the premier people of cutting all analog and doing great things. Neil Young's Greatest Hits. This is a double vinyl LP, heavy friggin' stock, and one of the best sounding records in my collection in terms of the singer-songwriter stuff. Opening up with Down by the River and Cowgirl in the Sand take up side 1. Cinnamon Girl, Helpless, After the Gold Rush, Only Love Will Break Your Heart, Southern Man, and it goes on and on and on. 2 records, an amazing sounding collection with this beautiful record gatefold. You don't even have to pull the record out to see it. Joel Bernstein cover. The photographer, the archivist, the guitar tech, the man about Neil Young and CSNY and all that stuff. Great thing. You got even Harvest Moon on here. So this is the expanded one, Comes a Time, Hey, Hey, My, Rockin' in the Free World. An amazing sounding record. Now, Neil Young is one of the few artists I'm almost like a 98% all in on. But once in a while, you just want it to flow and hear those familiar songs. So this is an epic collection. So greatest hits inclusion based on the original record, airplay, and known download history. That's Neil Young's quote. So they took the original and added to it for this updated collection. That happens sometimes in the vinyl world. It happened in the CD world. When CDs first came on, they would add songs to fill up fill a CD over the original greatest hits record. But this is one that's extremely well done. Heavy, heavy, heavy. And no seam splits. Last number 10 before the bonus. The bonus you're going to be disappointed by anyway. But this version only came out in 2018 on CD and vinyl. The Best of Pink Floyd, A Foot in the Door. Now, there's been other comps. There's Relics way back with that cover artwork on the UK version, at least, by Nick Mason, the illustration cover, which is kind of interesting. American had a different cover. People don't think of them as a hits band, a best of band. It's really hard to do it, but I love this collection. This is a nice, I just listened to this, the only one of these I think I listened to, well, actually after the Rolling Stones, I put this on. It's double record. There are edits, single edits like Shine on You, Crazy Diamond, and Another Brick in the Wall, the reprise from Time, Breathe in the Air. So how can you cut up The Wall and Dark Side of the Moon and all those things? This is how they did it, and it works. And I love when they do something like this when it's not in chronological order. So you start with Hey You, and you go into See Emily Play. Happiest Day of Our Life, and then Another Brick in the Wall, and then Have a Cigar. You got Money, you got Comfortably Numb, you got Learning to Fly, the later non-Roger stuff. Shine on You, Crazy Diamond, into Brain Damage, ending with Eclipse. It's just a great listen. And that's what music is about, listening to music. It's so shocking that it's edited, they couldn't even look at it. Look at that. Pink Floyd. This is just a more recent comp, like 8 years ago. That's 10. Now, I pull this out because I have this love-hate relationship with Chicago. Their first album, Chicago Transit Authority, 1968, politically charged, beautifully recorded, came out of nowhere, the horns. I love that record. That was an amazing record. Chicago 2, I like 2. Chicago 3, and then they got into like, it was hit and miss. The big live album with that poster bigger than a house, 4 LPs or whatever, was kind of cool. But after that, they got into MOR, middle of the road stuff, you know, some changes. Once Terry Kath died and left, it was all over for me. Now, and also when they got sued and had to change the name, drop the Transit Authority and just be Chicago. But this is a great hits album. This has all the singles you need. Now, this is where, do you need that? You need the singles and the first album. Obviously, from the first album, you have, does anyone know what time it is? Really know what time it is? You have, well, from later, it's the second or third album, 29 or 6 to 4, 25 or 6 to 4. When I was in junior high school or high school band, we played that. And I played it on the guitar, I think I play the thing on an electric guitar, but it was a bass thing. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, that part. Feeling Stronger Every Day, Saturday in the Park, Just You and Me, Make Me Smile. You know, all the hits that you need. Beginnings, that great version from the original album. So you don't really need a greatest hits, just get the first CTA album. But this is great. Now, one thing which is really cool about this, maybe a lot of people know it, a lot of people may not know this cover. The photographer who took these pictures had a sense of realism, very much like the Norman Rockwell, you know, the painter, the Americana painter, Norman Rockwell. His photography was emulated after Norman Rockwell. He was an artist, a designer out of New York, of the East Coast, that moved to LA and became a photographer. He was a designer. His name is Reed Miles. He did all those wonderful Blue Note record covers, the design of the Blue Note. Almost every cover of the art direction, the layout was Reed Miles. He moves to LA, becomes a photographer. He did a lot of advertising work. I remember when I started my ad career with my photographers, I would be occasionally up against a Reed Miles. He was one of the premier, but you knew what you're going to get from him. He did it really well. And he is the photographer that created this. I've said this many times. After this, or before that, with Chicago 2 and 3 and 4 and 10, and that the whole Roman numeral thing was destroyed because of this band. Too many Chicago and I's and V's and X's and stuff. But after this, I couldn't care less about this band. This is number 11. This is the bonus. And that is Mazzy's Boomer Best comps, best of. But if you like any of these bands, except Chicago, deep in, get into their full albums. Because the thing is about albums, about the listening to the whole experience of a creation of an artist.